You spend enough time hanging around overly conservative American mothers and pizza, and you'll eventually start thinking that video games are a little bit violent. I mean, killing enough prostitutes in GTA or playing something like Manhunt in general will eventually start getting you thinking that video games can be pretty violent. I don't really care though. Weapons, those little guys capable of getting things done in video games. Whether it's a high-end space gun or a sharpened stick, they tend to do a pretty good job at giving your enemies something to chew on. Frankly, without them, you're just some dude swinging his fists around and hoping for the best. So basically punch out if the other guy had a gun or something. This is just the stuff I think about on a day-to-day basis. So, you know the drill by now, let's look at some of the best of them. And you know what I noticed making this video? There's millions of them. You could probably argue a good case for any number of weapons out there to be on this list. So in more ways than one, I had an awful lot of material to work with. So let's blow this joint, or if we had a gun we could shoot it. Or we could punch it, or we had like those Wolverine things. Let me say this right from the start. Mario does not have weapons. Usually. There have been exceptions, of course there has, but 9 times out of 10 the guy runs off power-ups, usually some variety of mushroom. So I'm gonna cheat and say that these are weapons because I want something from Mario on here, but even so my pick might be a bit of a weird one. Back in the day when New Super Mario Bros was actually a new and exciting concept, Nintendo gave us New Super Mario Bros for the DS. Basically a revamped 2D Mario game on the handheld, back when this was a strange and foreign idea. What sold this game for me wasn't being able to play a new Mario platformer on a handheld, more so the ridiculously fun multiplayer where you'd fight Luigi for stars and shit. This is where my choice, the blue shell, really shows its qualities. It's funny how Mario Kart has ingrained this reputation of blue shells being worse than Hitler, and then over here, there's like little old New Super Mario Bros for the DS, with the blue shell being awesome. Don't take that away from me. I'm sure at some point playing a Mario game you've thrown a Koopa shell and probably taken out some enemies. Now imagine you are able to control the shell after you've thrown it, and that's the blue shell power up in a nutshell. Jump over pits, outrun falling rocks, take out virtually every enemy in your path. You enter this scenario of if you can control where the hell you're going, this game becomes almost laughably easy. Which is strange when you think about it because this is the same game that hyped up the inclusion of the Mega Mushroom, and being able to literally blitz your way through levels. And the blue shell is just so much better. Not only does it never run out, but you can take it and use it effectively at any level in the game. Only question that remains is, why isn't it being in more Mario games? Nintendo, you keep using your stupid ice flower, give the blue shell a run out now and again. Olimar from Pikmin is a scrawny little guy, though I guess you can expect that from a bloke who's about the size of a 50p coin. So in order to take on the world and find some shit parts, or random crap to sell, he needs some extra firepower. And aren't they just adorable? So yeah, Pikmin. Olimar uses these little critters to do everything from carry stuff to beat the shit out of enemies to even knocking down walls. But there is one specific type of Pikmin that rises above all of this and stands alone as the proverbial god in the world of Pikmin. Prepare to meet your maker, the purple Pikmin. These guys are the Olympic champion weightlifters of the Pikmin world. They stride around, gold medals draped from their necks. They know they're 10 times stronger than any other Pikmin. They know they do insane amount of damage to enemies. They don't care that they're a lot slower than any other Pikmin. They get the sponsorship deals that the others can simply dream about.
I feel just like a purple Pikmin.
Purple Pikmin are the heavy weapons that Pikmin sorely needed. Going through Pikmin 1, I always felt that you were particularly vulnerable to enemies, mostly because if you were unprepared, you were in big trouble. But carrying around some purple Pikmin in the sequel is an incredible feeling, almost like being followed around by a small army of bodyguards. Suddenly, the world of Pikmin isn't so daunting when you're packing so many of these little guys, although little might not be the word to use. And you have to remember that during all of this, whether it's stunning an enemy or taking back a treasure using only one of them or just watching them waddle around, it's all being done by something this cute. Look into his eyes and see all the lives he has ended. You know who's got a lot of weapons, other than every FPS character ever and anyone from a violent sandbox game? Yeah, that blue bomber guy, goes by the name of Mega Man nowadays. Without any of his arm cannon gun power-up things, Mega Man wouldn't be anywhere near as effective as he's been before. All you'll ever do in Mega Man games is jump and shoot. Take away the shoot and you're left with jump, and this ain't no Mario game. So let's talk about shoot, and you'd have to question whether or not Capcom tested the balance of the Metal Blades before putting them into Mega Man 2, because they're a little bit insane. Every other weapon in Mega Man 2 is carefully tested to ensure that they weren't either overpowered or underpowered, making sure that every power-up gets a use, whether it's appropriate or not. Seriously, what the fuck is the Boom Beam Trap? The Metal Blades are comfortably the strongest weapon in the game, with the ability to shoot in 8 directions and obliterate nigh on every enemy you could meet, and a handful of bosses too. Mega Man games are often labelled as difficult games, and, you know, they kind of are, but the Metal Blades are what single-handedly made Mega Man 2 a walk in the park for me. Yeah, you've still got Dr. Wily's alien form, just bear with me here, which actually gains health from hitting with a Metal Blade, but the ease with which it trashes the rest of the game is a little staggering. The best minds in history are still hard at work trying to explain why Metal Man, the guy you get the Metal Blades off in the first place, is the boss that takes the most damage from them. I mean, I'm guessing that the Metal Blade is just really powerful generally, like having your weapon of choice being molten plutonium, but I just think Metal Man's a wimp. I can try to explain why Assassin's Creed is so fun, but it's really quite simple. Being secretive and stealthy in how you go about your business is an awful lot more fun than striding in all guns blazing. There's a strategy to it, an almost artistic method of killing bad guys while the rest don't even notice. This is the essence which games like Metal Gear and more importantly, Assassin's Creed is built on. And no weapon sums this up better than the Hidden Blade. There's really only 2 ways you could fight someone in Assassin's Creed. You could face them head on in some sort of scrappy, counter, parry, fucking I'm gonna stab you and you're gonna stab me kind of thing. Or you could sneak up to them, and while they're not paying attention, then just WHAM! Hidden Blade. There's nothing too fancy about the Hidden Blade, it's just an extra special something hidden up your sleeve, like a spring-loaded dagger designed to be inconspicuous, available when you need it and no more. It's what you can do with it that elevates it to something much more. Granted, in a head-on confrontation with a guy wielding a sword, it's not the best thing to use, it's quite a small weapon after all. But if you play Assassin's Creed the way you probably should and stay out of trouble, it's the perfect stealth tool. Apparently though, this wasn't enough of a selling point, and later Assassin's Creed games added a ton of extra features ranging from an even more subtle poison kill, to giving you another one for your other arm, making assassinations even more flashy. There's probably more effective ways of getting things done, but this is one of those outrageously self-indulging weapons. You don't really have to kill anyone with a Hidden Blade, but you'll really want to. So we've seen sharp things, shells and purple vegetables, but this next one might be the weirdest of them all. Mostly because it's not really a weapon. I guess it's a little bit too late now. Portal stands above all of Valve's other games as being a game where you don't get shit done with a standard gun, or even a gun in general. It might be down to how it's more of a first-person puzzle game rather than a shooter, but the way you use the portal gun is what launches it straight onto this list. Like I said, you can make a convincing case for the portal gun not being a weapon because it's not like you shoot any kind of ammo from it, but you do use it to combat enemies, manipulating the environment around them, and hey, that works for 2 fantastic boss fights. Like most things, the portal gun was given a boost in Portal 2, but more so because of what was added around it. The portal gun has never changed, you can still shoot 2 colourful portals and walk from one to the other. But when you're suddenly given light bridges, lasers, and gels to play with, Portal and its special little gun become endlessly creative. Sure, you don't really kill anyone with it, but you sure can kill them indirectly and have a fun time doing so. It's a case of, okay, so I can't kill you by shooting one at you, but if I shot a portal above your head, and then shot one underneath a crate, you're gonna know about it. The Blades of Chaos from God of War are more than 2 giant swordy slashy things. Granted, in every beat 'em up slicey dicey game you need a weapon that gets things done, but the Blades of Chaos aren't exactly your run-of-the-mill offensive weapon. A newly assigned lackey of the God of War Eris needs something special to take down his foes, and so Kratos is given the Blades of Chaos, these huge pair of chained blades that extend when you use them, allowing you to attack people from afar in a fluid and natural motion. Fights in God of War are less about running around dishing out combos, and more in almost a Dynasty Warriors fashion of being the omnipotent force in a room full of morons, siphoning down all those before you. Just applied to a lot fewer enemies than in Dynasty Warriors. But then comes the boss fights and holy shit. These really are the perfect tools for taking down gods and giant titans. You see, the Blades of Chaos are also very handy as a grappling hook style climbing tool thing, making the otherwise very difficult job of climbing up the side of these guys much easier and a ton of fun. It's not quite Shadow of the Colossus, which is more of a good thing than you might think, but it made boss fights a combination of climbing segments and a bit more of sticking things where the sun don't shine. Seriously, that Kronos fight is my fucking jam. It's also hard to forget what you can do to people once you're up close and personal. The Blades of Chaos are the star of some of the most violent finishes you're ever likely to see outside of No More Heroes. So, if what you want is to hideously dismember those who stand in your way, check with your doctor first, and if he says everything's okay, I can hook you up. I haven't mentioned Team Fortress 2 in the last 5 minutes.
Something must change.
Points for predictability, let's roll out the Crusaders Crossbow again. I talked about this a while back and my opinion of it hasn't changed in the slightest. Medics in most forms of gaming are guys who sit back and heal up the powerhouses so they can go into the world and blow some people up. TF2 for the most part is no different except for this beautiful little crossbow right here. This is more than a weapon for the medic, it's a weapon that doubles as a way of healing your friends. Depending on if it hits an enemy or an ally, it will either do damage to the enemy or heal the equivalent on your friend. You can hang back in a choke point, both sides throwing all sorts of danger and sadness down such a small area, and you can join them, either healing up partners or dealing a bit of damage to the bad guys. Either way, you're doing a great job helping your team's cause. The Crusaders Crossbow keeps you out of harm's way while making sure you fulfill your role as Team Doctor. Oh, and it doesn't heal disguised spies, you can even spy check with it. Or you could shoot people with needles. I mean, given the choice between lots of little needles or one giant needle, I'd go with the little needles. It probably just works like acupuncture, as opposed to having a giant needle stuck through your head. To each their own. Choosing a gun from an FPS game seems like a fruitless endeavour. Do you go for the gun that does the most damage, so probably some sort of sniper rifle or a rocket gun? Or, what I'm actually going to do you veer more towards clever concepts and quirky designs? In that case, there's few better than the solar gun from Metal Gear Solid 4. Part of the joys of video game weapons is that you get ideas that would never work in reality. There's of course guns that are either copies of real life guns or at the very least based off them, but the world has never seen something like the solar gun before. If you didn't know the background to this thing, you'd think it was some sort of frazzled idea coming from a drug-induced dream. But no, Hideo Kojima, who's mad as a box of frogs at the best of times, took the idea from one of his old games, Boktai: The Sun Is In Your Hand, where the main character's weapon of choice is the solar gun. You effectively have infinite ammo with this thing up until the point where you run out of solar energy, at which point you have to charge it up by physically going outside and getting some sunshine on the light sensor on the GBA cartridge. Actually, no, that's still a fucking crazy idea. Thankfully it wasn't that ridiculous in MGS4, but it was still used in crazy ways. Like the Boktai counterpart, you're effectively running off of infinite ammo, and with the option of weak rapid fire shots and a potent charge shot that launches enemies flying, dropping all manner of goodies along the way, there's some legitimate substance to this thing. Of course, should you run out of ammo, which you will, Snake can recharge it by stopping in place, thrusting the gun in the air, and shouting "Sunlight!" Though only when you're outside, of course. Wasn't MGS4 at some point a stealth game? Surely you're abandoning any semblance of being sneaky when you're running around screaming about sunshine and shooting people with a sun gun. Although, mind you, this was the game that had that crazy matchlock rifle that whipped up a huge tornado after a while. Just smile politely and nod. I know I said previously that there's much fun to be had by taking enemies out in a sneaky way, but sometimes that just isn't an option. You might well be faced with an entire room full of enemies looking straight at you and nowhere for you to run. Something like the Hidden Blade isn't going to do shit in that kind of situation. Thankfully, should this arise in a game like Doom for example, there's something that can make this a walk in the park. Meet the BFG, a giant friendly man who collects good dreams and then gives them to children. He would then go on to make a game called Doom under the pseudonym of John Romero. But he wanted his legacy to live on, so he added a gun named after him, known colloquially as the Big Fucking Gun. This beast of a gun is a godsend, something that really tips the scales massively in your favour. The further you go through Doom, the better weapons you get, ending with first the plasma rifle, and for what it's worth, the plasma grenade launcher of violent oppression. The BFG launches a large green plasma ball that is more often than not a one-hit kill on whatever enemy is unfortunate enough to be hit by it. with the added bonus of providing enough splash damage to take down any other aliens nearby. You can clear out entire rooms of bad guys in one shot, turning previously treacherous challenges into a goddamn sleepwalk. It doesn't even do any damage to you, so you can launch off however you like, knowing that the only things that are going to be hurting from it are those funny looking alien guys. You can make comparisons to the power bomb from any 2D Metroid. You dump this insanely powerful explosive in the middle of a room, and then you kind of watch as things around you sort of just die. Or, you know, you could like sneak up behind them, and when they're not looking, you could it's not worth it, is it? A complaint that is often, and rightly so most of the time, levelled at video games is the divide between story and gameplay. Should there be a divide? Should you go out of your way to link them wherever possible? Or should you just leave it as is and work on them separately? Most video games need a story, so how do you go about making the gameplay feel like an extension of it? Leave it to one of the biggest names in the business to get it right. Legend of Zelda. Mind you, not all elements in a Zelda game are reflected between the plot and the adventure-style gameplay a Zelda game thrives off of, but there's been some incredible highlights along the way. Majora's Mask's 3-day time limit has always been a favourite of mine, as it evokes a feeling of desperation in both the story and how you can't really screw around too much going about your hero business. But that's not really a weapon. Well, I guess the moon is a bit of a weapon, but not really in the true meaning of the word. But then we have the Master Sword, and last time I checked, that's a damn good weapon. Stripping it down to its bare bones, the Master Sword is just a stronger sword. You hit enemies with it, and they die quicker than with the crappy piece of metal you had before. Almost never has a good name anyway. Hey, in the Oracle games, it shows you how much better it is than any other sword in the game. Granted, it's crazy difficult to get, but that's the whole point. In any game where Ganon, or Grandad Ganon, shows up, the Master Sword is usually the only way to defeat the guy. Literally in Ocarina of Time's case, where you physically can't end the fight without hitting him with it. Admittedly, it's not always the strongest sword in the game, and in some games it doesn't even show up. What is the Gilded Sword anyway? No, hang on, why is the Gilded Sword? What the Master Sword does is give you a goal in a Zelda game. You know that when you get this thing, you've got something to take down anything in your path. Unless it's Wind Waker or Skyward Sword, where you need to power up the thing because padding. It's a sensational link between story and gameplay. Your best weapon is the only thing that can beat the game for you. It's a straight up means to an end. Not to mention that it's got an extensive lore behind it, something that Skyward Sword did perfectly by creating the damn thing and then having Fi live inside it for every game since. Skyward Sword did something right? What? What makes the Legend of the Master Sword even better is how all of these encounters, all of this being the Sword of Evil's Bane stuff, that's all you. Because it's been in so many Zelda games, the reputation it's been given was only ever possible because you kicked so much butt with it. It's less of a reputation built by these far-off fables, and one crafted from your own actions, and whichever way you look at it, that's a pretty amazing feeling. Sure, you could argue that there are technically stronger swords in the Zelda series, you've only got to take a passing glance at the Bigoran Sword or the Great Fairy Sword, but for what it is, what it means to the Zelda series, and just what it does in every game it's in, there can only be one. This has been rabbidluigi, and given the choice of weapon to take into battle, I wouldn't take some sort of funky healing crossbow or some sort of gun powered by the sun. I'd just take a sword which has got a bit of a reputation for taking down massive armies of bad guys. Frankly, can you blame me? I'm sure you will. Want to help support these videos a bit more directly than liking and favoriting? I've set up my own page on Patreon where you can make small regular donations that go straight towards the running of this channel, so any help there is greatly appreciated. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and like my page on Facebook in order to stay up to date with all the news and goings on with this channel. And then suddenly, without warning, videos came flying onto the screen, providing onlookers with something to watch should they have enough time to do so. There is much that can be done with this scenario, and only you have the power to shut me up. I highly suggest you do this, cause I can't speak like this forever, even though I wish I could, cause I'd get all the sex. But alas, that is not the case. And so I shall depart. Thank you for watching, and stay amazing, you beautiful, beautiful people.